Okay, thank you very much. My name is Ingida Sayas, as I said, and I work for Dilla University. Currently, I am PhD candidate at Addis Ababa University, specializing in socio-economic development policy and planning. So, what I am going to present is patterns of structural change in the economy of major urban centers in Ethiopia. So I will follow this outline. I will talk about the background and then introduce the objectives, and then again briefly discuss about method, results, conclusion, and recommendation to implications. To begin with, the purpose for which cities exist is important. So urban centers, be it city or a town of any size, they exist to provide functions. Therefore, cities exist to provide functions. Then, what are functions? Urban functions refer to goods and services provided by a city or a region or a country for the city population or for the surrounding population or abroad. So by virtue of functions, cities could be classified as like commercial towns, administrative headquarters, mining towns, manufacturing towns, centers of communication, storage and transfer, education, and the like. The most important fact is every city has its economic base, and without which a city cannot exist. So it is important for the existence of cities and towns. Therefore, these functions could be classified into two: the one which brings income into the city, the one which satisfies the local demand. So a function could be basic and non-basic. So basic functions mean city-forming functions, functions that help inject income from outside into the city so that the city could benefit more. The other one is non-basic or city-serving functions. These kind of functions are just for satisfying the local demand only. Excess is not exported out of the city. Therefore, it focuses on satisfying the urban population only. So a city may have one function, predominantly one function, or two, or three, or four. Even it may be more than that. So some cities may have unifunctional, some may have multi-functional. When we come to Ethiopia is predominantly a rural country. When we see the statistics, the urban population is yet not more than 20%. The recent report indicates that it is about 19%. Cities play a significant role in the GDP. A recent report again by the World Bank indicates that cities account for about close to 40% of the GDP. Therefore, understanding the economic basis of cities is quite relevant for countries like Ethiopia. So that may help formulate strategies to make informed decisions, to monitor the economy so that the desirable impact will happen. To this end, I used simple techniques. One is standard deviation, the other one is economic base and shift share analysis techniques. I will speak briefly about this later. So the objective, the major objective is to identify changes that have been taking place in the functional composition of major urban centers. Because They are dynamic, they need to be monitored, they need to be analyzed on continual basis so that people will be updated. Authorities managing the city may have up-to-date information so that they may make proper decisions. So specific objectives, identifying the basic and non-basic sectors, one. The other one is assessing the urban centers' overall performance relative to other urban centers, and identifying industries that are performing better in major urban centers, and again, those which are expanding and declining, just simply to identify this. So the method, the source of the data is entirely based on Urban Employment Unemployment Survey. Two surveys, 2009 and 2012. I wrote this paper in 2012 for PhD seminar at Addis Ababa University for a course known as Urban and Regional Development Planning. So in this survey, the survey covers employed population of urban areas aged 10 and above by major industrial divisions. This is taken as it is. The cities included are 15 major urban centers as they are included in the survey. Mekele, Asaita, Gondar, Dese, Bahar Dar, Bishoptu, Adama, Jimma, Jigjiga, Asosa, Hawassa, Gambella, Harar, Addis Ababa, and Redhawa. So the Bezir and Indir are 2009 and 2012. So when I come to the standard deviation analysis, so cities having population between 50,000 to 300,000, more or less, are included in this analysis. I deliberately excluded Addis to avoid primacy effect and avoided some cities having very low urban population. And these activities were aggregated. Primary activities like agriculture, hunting, fishing, and the like were put together as primary activities. The second group, manufacturing and construction. Then essential services, business and financial services, hotel and transport services, administrative and defense services. These are the aggregated functions. So the standard deviation was calculated, mean calculated, and then the idea is where a given function lies maybe in the mean plus 1 standard deviation region, plus 2 SD region, or plus 3 or more. So this is the computation. So the mean, the standard deviation is computed, and also when we add mean plus SD, these are the values. On the basis of this, cities are classified. So the other one is location quotient. This is another simple techniques that help understand the local economy, the regional economy, or the urban economy. And it is simply the ratio of local employment to the national employment in a given sector. And the basic idea behind this is when location quotient value is greater than 1, it is said to be basic. The service is basic one, that which brings income from abroad, or that which help us to export abroad. The other one is when location quotient is less than 1. So it is non-basic. When it is 1, it is self-sufficient. So if a city has a location quotient value more than 1 in many sectors, then that city is multifunctional. If it has only 1, then only single function is basic employment. This is a way computed for Mekele, computed, and so mining and quarrying and and manufacturing are dominantly basic sectors. Others are predominantly local. So in similar fashion, for all cities, this method applied and computation was made following similar procedures. The other issue is computing basic employment multiplier, basic employment. The idea is when one person is employed in basic sector, because it has multiplier effect, it is expected to create 2 or 3 or 5 or more employment in non-basic sector. The idea is the ratio to the best is expected to be 1 to 1, that is the best. Otherwise, 1 to 2, again, it is better. But when the ratio is less than that, it is not appreciated. Therefore, basic employment is computed following this procedure. The third method, all right, is shift-share analysis. Shift-share analysis helps to decompose the economy into 3 components. 1, national growth effect, industry mix effect, and competitive share effect. The total change in the economy or total employment change is the sum total of these 3 elements. So this is a procedure followed to compute shift-share analysis. This is a practical example which is computed for Mekelle. And following the same procedure again, I computed for all the rest. So, results. Functional specialization and diversification. So we have services. Again, we have cities put to the left, to the right, mean whether they lie in mean plus 1 standard deviation, mean plus 2 standard deviation, or mean plus 3 standard deviation. So we see many cities lie in mean plus 1 standard deviation. That means many cities have location quotient values. When we add to the mean the standard deviation, simply they lie in this region. That is, that function is not as such predominant. We see many here, but when we go to plus 2, plus 3, we see less number of cities. The other is, as I said, basic non-basic ratio is computed for 2 years, 2009 and 2012, and as I said, it varies. However, the larger the size of the city, the gap is wider. The gap between basic and non-basic employment is wider. So the other one is functional change based on location quotient, classifying cities into 3 groups. 1, leading urban regions, cities of leading regions and urban regions. The second group, cities, provincial capitals. The third one, towns of emerging regions. So urban region, we have 3 towns, Harar, Dredhawa, and Addis, which have the urban population over 50 or 60% is urban. That's why it is said to be urban region. Leading regions are 4, basically. In terms of socio-economic development, they are better than others. South Tigray, Amhara, and Oromia are leading regions. And emerging regions are those who lag behind. This include Somali, Afar, Benishangul, and Gambela regions. Therefore, this is a classification. So what we can understand from this is location quotient computed for 2 different years, and the order, in terms of order of importance, it is put, and the order in many cases changed. That shows the dynamics. The most important sector, basic sector, is changed later in 2012. Therefore, that is showing the dynamics. The same is true here, except for Jimma. Jimma is a city in southwest Ethiopia. In 2009 and 12, there is no change in the order of basic sectors. In emerging regions, here primary services are predominant, like agriculture is the most important one, and other services are most important, including public administration and defense. So the other issue is shift share analysis. I computed here for only two, for manufacturing and construction, because the policy in Ethiopia supports or encourages manufacturing. Therefore, I wanted to see whether there is a change in this area. Therefore, I computed shift share analysis for these cities, and the national growth effect, the industry mix effect, the competitive share effect is also computed, and the total shift in the economy is also computed. So when we see, in terms of manufacturing, Mekelle has performed well, followed by Hawassa in southern Ethiopia. Others somehow performed relatively better, but in some cases we can see negative values. All right? Okay, a couple of 2 minutes. One, okay. Construction, we see here again many positive change, and Addis is dominant, 60%, followed by Mekelle, and others have varied values. So the other issue is scenario. 4 kind of scenario can be obtained based on shift share analysis. Cities could be expanding nationally and locally, expanding nationally but declining locally, declining nationally but expanding locally, or declining nationally and locally based on shift share and competitive share and industry mix effect values. So let me go to the conclusion, I think. That captures, I think, the whole thing. Well, what we can observe from the analysis is urban centers in Ethiopia are becoming more and more multifunctional or functionally diversified, which is expected. The other trend is the larger the size of the population, the higher the tendency for urban centers to be multifunctional. This is another observation. However, the problem is the relative position of transformative industries like manufacturing. Manufacturing is not the basic, the first or the prime basic sector in most cities. That's why the policy is to push in this regard. The other area is observation is extractive activities, social services, distributive activities, public administration, defense play major role as basic employers in many cities considered in the analysis. So among secondary, transformative industries, construction appears to be booming. Okay, Ethiopia is under construction. Therefore, this appears to be employing more. And some towns relatively shown better performance in terms of competitive advantage, probably in manufacturing, construction, and other sectors than others included, like the typical ones include Mekelle and Hawassa. So they might have better competitive share effect, and that might require further investigation into that as to the reasons that contributed a lot to make this to be in the forefront. Well, in general, to understand the urban economy, the local economy, continuous investigation, analysis of this kind is needed. The other issue is other sector, other social and economic services is important, and so this has to be reclassified in the surveys. And therefore, understanding the urban economy might help make better decisions that help grow the urban centers. Thank you very much.
All Right, thank you very much, Engida, for this very interesting and very detailed analysis of the structural composition and the structural change of formal employment in Ethiopia from 2009 to 2012. Just to briefly repeat what you said, it builds on the economic base theory and use these location quotient, LQ, and shift-share analysis methods. The most interesting findings for me were that the share of employment in construction increases nationally and in most cities, whereas the share of employment in manufacturing actually decreases nationally, but how some cities actually manage to go against this trend and increase their employment share in manufacturing. Also, you find that the employment share in distributive, social, and extractive services increases most strongly, and it would be interesting to find out a bit more what exactly includes all these distributive and social services in particular. Just to connect this to the bigger picture, when I read your paper, my first thought was, why is all of this happening? So you document the structural changes in very meticulously and in great detail. It would be nice if you could just maybe descriptively tell a bit about the mechanisms in place. Why do we find the employment shares in some cities change so drastically, whereas in others there's basically no change over these 3 or 4 years? Another point, you mentioned that briefly at the end of your presentation. What does this paper tell us about policy? So are there any specific sectors that have different implications for overall growth? For example, it seems to be the case that you always stress the importance of manufacturing for overall growth in Ethiopia. It would be nice to find out basically a bit more about these different sectors that you're looking at, and what then in turn can be done to increase their respective employment share throughout the country. One thing I was wondering, now you look at formal employment numbers, do you have any further data on labor productivity and anything that goes beyond purely formal employment? It would be really nice to see something like that. And just to wrap up my last slide, a few open questions that I was left with at the end. What is happening at the against the trend cases? So places where a nationally declining industry expands locally or vice versa. So these are the really interesting cases, I thought. What are the potential caveats of the data that you use? So you're just looking at formal employment, but I'm sure that some sectors are really dominated by a lot of informality. And thirdly, it would be nice if you could, I've already said that, a bit more intuition about what these different patterns of structural changes mean for the future development of these cities. Thank you very much.
Should we take any other questions that there might be before you address the discussants' comments?
There's some askance and I have to answer all of them together.
That's okay for you?
Yeah, it's okay.
Is there any other questions, in fact?
Thank you for the excellent presentation. I mean, I live there, I see this cities growing, but I didn't put system on them to see what's going on behind them, behind this growth, and many foreigners come to Ethiopia and ask me, what is the source of growth? I mean, what is the source of money? Anyway, it's difficult to explain, but coming to the conclusion, you say that Mekelle and Hawassa, in the area of manufacturing. So, as an economist, I would be expecting Adama or Bishoftu to have that comparative advantage of markets and manufacturing. I mean, is it a policy issue? Why Mekelle has a potential, which has a distance of 700 kilometers from Addis, while Adama, I was expecting these towns around Addis to have a potential growth in terms of manufacturing and others. Now I see your result shows Hawassa and Mekelle. So I don't know, is it a policy issue behind it or any other rationale? Thank you.
Any other questions? Stefan.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. Just a quick question on the choice of years. Do I understand correctly that it was 2009, 2012? And if so, in a sense, I was wondering, well, Those were years of growth in Ethiopia that just occurred after the financial meltdown of the OECD world and whatnot. Maybe to really get at some of the structural transformation trends that you want to capture, you want to look at a larger period. So something pre-2005, before growth really picked up in Ethiopia, and then 2012, for example. So my question is about the choice of years.
So I think in this data set you should have data on migration and what proportion of the labor force are migrants, and I wondered if it would be interesting to look at which cities are having more migrants, which industries are driving migration to the city. This boom in construction in Addis Ababa, is that just leading to some migration in this setting? Given that there's such low urbanization rates in Ethiopia, can we learn something from this about the constraints to that?
Okay, thank you very much. I have to reflect on some of the issues. Let me start with Dr. Woldai Ammaha's question. Why do these two cities come in the forefront in terms of competitive share? This is a problem with statistics, the data. When I calculate the data, surprisingly, the data showed as I presented. Why? Actually, that may need further investigation. It may be the environment, the policy environment, the institutional environment, in some cases encouraging environment, in some cases discouraging environment might be there when we compare regions, different regions. So it may not necessarily the same in all regions. That may create variations. But when we come to areas surrounding Addis, like Bishoftu relatively has better performed when we compare with others in terms of manufacturing. I was not in a position to present the whole thing. If you see the whole document, you can see this thing. But yeah, that is the way. So whether it is policy issue or institutional issue or other issue, based on this analysis, somebody may carry out the detailed collecting data and then make analysis and then find the answers for these kind of questions. So what are the mechanisms in place? Why does employment change in some cities, etc.? Yeah, this might be seen within the broader framework of maybe employment policies, poverty reduction policies, and the like. Yeah, this method is basically used in one way to inform policymakers on basically it is used to monitor the urban economy. Just you compute, you see the progress, and then whenever necessary you have to make some kind of decision, intervention, like where to prioritize, what to encourage, what to discourage. So on continual basis, this kind of analysis need to be made so that people, decision makers, should be well informed so that they could make evidence-based decision. That is just simply the issue. I was not clear about this structural transformation in 2000.